Welcome to Eve Singularity on the test server, Major Freak. So let's talk about overheating. It's simpler than you think, and it's frustratingly not as cool as you think. If you thought, say this was a high slot, and you had, say, 3 weapons, right? Let's just ignore these for a bit. So you had 3 weapons, and you had something in the middle of them, and you're like, hey, I could like use this as a heat sink from overheating. It'd be great. Then you find out it's only helpful if you offline it or empty. And then you realize that, then you find out that all the modules, including your rig number, so it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 are calculated. So if you've got a whole bunch of online modules, it's going to be divided by the total, including the offline, plus the rig slots. So 3 rig slots plus that is 4 extra. So that's, you do the math. And so it's not ooh, it's this calculated for overheat soaking up. It's actually not. It's this offline and high could affect an overheating module in the mid slot or the low slot. So the more offline or empty modules you have on your ship, the better. So as you can no doubt tell, it's not that great. And so I'm eyeing this. And if you overheat something and the chance to overheat something is variable, but if this overheats if it applies any damage to anything, it'll only do 2.64 hit points of damage to whatever module it's affecting, and that including itself. So that means everything's got pretty much everything except a few modules in the game, which is kind of silly if you think about it. After you've watched this video, you're like, wait a minute, that sounds stupid. But all the modules, let's just say all the modules, and asterisks for exceptions, but all the modules have 40 hit points. So that means, adjusted by skill, that's the only thing your thermodynamics skill does, is lower this by a bit. But that means that this module is going to burn out anything in so it could, in 16 hits to it, it'll burn it out. So this module right here is doing that much heat damage. A prop mod will do a ton more, like 15, something stupid. It's pretty huge. But all you've got to realize is this can take, any module can take 15 hits. All right? And if you've got empty slots, like I'm testing right here, it's going to take forever. Basically, you're lowering the chance for damage to be applied. You cannot, and I'll emphasize this because I misunderstood it as well. You cannot the game mechanics does not modify this. This is a straight number. So you're never going to have to worry about, oh, the module's applying triple heat damage this turn. No, it's just fixed. If the only modifications is a whole bunch of factors that change the chances during the style. I'll turn on overheating now. Alright, so every cycle it checks against the base of your heat and whether to apply it to any of the modules in the row, and I've got no modules, it's all empty, it will take quite some time for this to fill up. There are 8 segments. The first segment fills approximately 25%. At 25%, or it'll move to the second slot. The second slot will fill about 37%. The third slot will fill at 51%. The fourth, which will fill, the red thing, the fourth segment will fill and only move. You'll get the fifth segment starting to fill after 63%, I think, and then so on and so forth. You get 87, and this last, the seventh, this is the 8th one right here, but the 7th one right here, that'll fill up at 99%, and this last segment, right, the 8th segment, is just 1%. So yeah, you just have to calculate how many hits you have to get to the 7th, because the 8th is just ridiculously small. So yeah, you figure, okay, so that amount of hits, I need to do one less cycle. If I can take 15 hits, I need to stop my cycle at 14 hits. And it's best if you figure out, okay, I can stop my cycle on the 6th. Once the 6th segment fills up, I have to stop my overheat, or else the last thing you want to do is to accidentally trip over that last segment, because once it does, it's just gonna burn out. So you can take 15 hits of this stuff, and that's great. So when you see this flashing and it doesn't fill up another segment, it's just filling up the first segment. So that's how you do it. You go, great. You can go quite some time overheating just one, if you're doing it right. I can go 4 minutes on my Griffin with 1 ECM overheated for 4 minutes. I've spread it out. It won't wrap, like it won't. It'll calculate percentage chance to jam. I mean overheat damage, based on the distance. But the more modules you have, the number penalizes you. So if you've got a ton of modules, you're actually got a pretty good chance to, a better chance to damage this one than, say, if you only had one mid slot extra, right? So if you had 2 mid slots right here, you basically would have less chance of burning the second one out and the first one out than if you had eight slots. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So the best use of overheating is simply to overheat one module. If you're trying to overheat like a crazy amount of high slots to apply damage, you're going to fill that up quick. Yeah, your overheat damage will be quite substantial, but the only thing that really takes chunks out of your mid slots basically are all the prop mods. The Tech 2, Tech 1, Afterburner, Micro Warp Drive. They all have the same chances to overheat, apply overheat damage, because they increase this at the same rate. It's kind of crazy, and of course the heat damage is incredible. Because of the battleship, it's got 50% less heat damage. 50% less chance to apply heat damage. It's difficult to, for me, I thought, because I'm so used to prop mods. Well, I didn't know, because prop mods would give you a lot of damage, and then other modules would give you lesser damage. And I didn't really understand the segments, what the segments meant, and I thought that it was variable damage. Like, one module might have a chance at high heat to apply more segments of damage, but that's not true at all. It's a misconception, but yeah, that's all it is. So yeah, if you had, it would be applying heat. Of course, it'd be modified by your skill. Heat damage 0.8. So that's pretty good. That's like a small shield booster. So each module has a different amount of damage they'll apply, but of course you have to remember that's a chance every cycle. So the slower the cycle, the smaller the heat damage, the less damage you're going to take. And of course, I'm not at the 6 yet, 66% damaged, and it's now at 86. You can get up to, it slows down. It's kind of really hard to get 100%, but there it is, 6. So to play it safe, as soon as it fills up to the 6 one, you just turn it off. And at the end of it, it's got a chance to apply damage. There we go. So there. Do I have any repair paste? Yeah. And the neat thing about stuff like this, it just takes 1 to repair it. Oh, sorry. Guess not. Do I have any? No, I don't. Yeah. As you can see, it takes 1 paste to repair that whole freaking thing. Well, if you cancel it, and you can, say if you can't, you start repairing it, and it's grays out, and it starts flashing as repair, and it slowly repairs itself, and it tells you how, you can hover over and it'll tell you how long it's going to take to repair. You can actually cancel that repair, and it won't revert to where you originally were. It'll partially repair you. It'll take that 1 repair paste, but yeah, you can, you're not stuck. You're not stuck in this loop of waiting till it cools down in order for you to use it again. You can just cancel the repair, and at that point you cancel it, it will be repaired X amount. And if you're repairing, say if you had a bunch of passives in between and you wanted to repair those, you can repair them and it won't penalize your ship. The passive effects will still take effect. Yeah, that's what I've learned in my experiments. There are nuances to this, but that's basically what you're getting. You just, how many hits can I, how many hits is this this module going to incur on other modules before they or it burns out? And you just, it's a straight math thing. You just go attribute heat damage, and you divide 40 by that heat damage, and that's how many hits you can take. It's just literally that. There are some exceptions. There's tactical destroyers, which, and strategic. There's a strategic cruiser in thingy subsystem that does the same kind of thing. But let's bring up this. But yeah, those are the exceptions. There are exceptions, and there's wiggle rooms. But as far as when your module is going to burn out, you can math that exactly, and so simply too. Just 40 divided by heat damage. There you go. That's how many hits you can take from that module overheating. %5 reduction in module heat damage amount taken per skill level. So 25% less. So that's pretty cool. So I believe the skill for thermo, I've got it at level, did I boost it to level 5? No, I've still got it at level 4. But yeah, it's going to reduce it by 5%. So you can reduce it by 50%, which is pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, there you go. That's the best I can talk about. Yeah, spacing out your modules is pretty cool. But if you've got like 6 guns and you put one thing in between it, that's not going to help you at all because there's so much, it's just every module is overheating. You've got one thing in between. It's not soaking up damage as much as you think. The only way it's going to maybe help you is if it's offline or empty. And then it lowers the chance to apply heat damage by a tiny bit. And remember, it's calculated off the formula is calculating off all the slots. And then, all the online modules, excluding the rigs, all the online modules divided by total slots plus the rig slots. So if you've got one offline module in all this, it's really not going to reduce your chances to apply damage by much. Well, a whole hell of a lot less than you think. So yeah, do be aware of that. And like I said, I'm probably repeating myself, but yeah, it's you've got to take it into consideration. You can't, if you're trying to game the system, it's not really built for gaming, because if you've got empty slots everywhere, yeah, it's not really helping you. But with that knowledge, that should help you. Yeah, it's surprising how little nanite paste is required to repair heat damage. It's pretty cool. Well, compared to like shoving into ancillary armor reppers, right? So it's interesting. I think you'll have a better understanding of heat. It's very simple. How many damage hits can I take? When at what segment should I turn it off? Like if you're overheating a micro warp drive, it's going to take huge chunks out of it. Check this out. So we've got heat damage 4, 5, 9, 9 for the civilian. You know, the larger ones give you less damage. 8.2. It's not that great, is it? But yeah, 9.6 damage per, and it's reduced by 25% for level 5, and then yeah, so it's pretty crazy. It'll take huge chunks out of your 40%, right? I mean, 40 structure hits, so that's a quarter. So you could take 4 hits from a compact afterburner to your modules, and it's quite surprising actually. So do be careful. I had a Griffin. Have they been blown up yet? Pretty sure. OPSEC and all that. All right, I had a Griffin. Let's just simulate. All right, so I had a Griffin, and I'm overheating it, right? And I could run it for 4 minutes. But if I overheated that, it would do, look, 15.2. Crazy, huh? That's like I could take 2 hits. The third one would just burn me out. That's pretty crazy. Yeah. Yeah, so check your module's heat damage and realize how many cycles you can get away with running it, because I could only run that for 2 cycles before. Actually, no, I can only run it for 1 cycle, and then I have to turn it off because it pretty much applies damage right away. So at the end of this first cycle, it applies 15. I cycle it off at the end of the second cycle. Once it turns off the overheat, it'll apply damage usually again, and that's 2 hits. So that's over 30 damage, right? And so one more, if I tried to cycle it for 2 times and then turn it off, or turn it off on the 3rd cycle, and it would cycle through the 3rd and then turn off at the end of the 3rd, but it would apply probably a 3rd hit of damage, and then it would turn off any modules affecting. Yeah, most likely the first one, but it could also turn off that one as well. Yeah, so it's crazy. That's a cycle time. You could run that for, you're only running this on overheat for 20 seconds, whereas if you're overheating this, you probably get away with it for about 4 minutes approximately, which is bananas nuts when you think about it. But yeah, you could totally overheat that, at 10.7 versus, it's against a Drekavac at whatever, right? RNG is so massive that we're orbiting at 90 kilometers that a level 4 character can outperform a level 5 character just through RNG in such a short time span, because we're on field for maximum of 15 minutes before it RFs, So it really is not going to make that much of a difference, but why the hell not? Yeah, I mean, for the price of nothing, you're increasing your tech level by you're like better than a Tech 2 module. And yeah, so that's pretty cool. So you've got one module that's better than a Tech 2 module for 4 minutes. And then you have to turn it up. And sure, they'll have heat damage, but it's not affecting anything. It's not modifying anything. So after 4 minutes, you turn off the overheat and you're back to normal, but there's no penalty for that. There's literally no penalty for that, except, you can't overheat anymore, or you're going to burn stuff out. But yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. Heat damage on, like, could you get away with it? Heat damage, what's the heat damage? 2.72. That's pretty cool. So you've got 2 of them. Say they were both overheated, well, grouped, obviously. So they're applying heat damage. Say they were applying heat damage every turn. From the first turn, they both were. How many seconds could you run this? How many, could you take advantage of it? Because they do have a, what's the rate of fire, right? So that's not bad. In fact, see, the EV University and the guy who wrote it has a video saying that heat dissipation, the HUD's dial, actually dissipates even when you've got modules overheating. Like, it doesn't pause dissipation. It's not much. But yeah, you could probably, and remember that dial is not an indication of, is not modifying your damage. It's just the chance. So 40 divided by 5.44 equals. So you could take 7 hits. So you could do it 7 times. So you could do 7 volleys overheated. And guaranteeing yourself you're not going to burn out. You know? I mean, that's the worst case scenario. So 7 times 8.58. Is that? No, I have to account for the first fire, and that's not. So that would be 6, right? It's not 7 volleys. It's initial volley, then 7 cycles. I mean, 6 cycles more, right? So I'm probably screwing up my math, but 6 times 8.58 seconds equals what? That's got to be wrong. Give me a sec. 6 times 8.58 equals. Now that's better. And so you've got just under a minute. You could overheat these for just under a minute. And you could assuming you could do that too. This will affect this rack. These two will affect this rack. The dial, which will be affected by both, is just the chances of heat being applied, but it doesn't modify the damage being applied, right? So just repeating that multiple times, just hammer that home, right? So yeah, I mean, the damage is pitiful, really. But yeah, you could have it pre-overheated. You can pre-overheat things. And you could get, let's rip this out. 26 versus 22. Woo. So it's piddling. But hey, I mean, every little bit counts, right? And believe me, your target will be dead in less than a minute. If it's not, you're dead because it's just a griffin. Yeah. But yeah, that's hopefully encourages you to try overheating. The amount that you need to repair all this after it's like at what, 80% heat damage is probably 1 repair, 2 repair, probably 3 nanites. So yeah, 14 is way more than enough, you know. I used to think, oh, okay, 60%, I'll need 3 or 4, I don't know how much. But when I'm actually doing it and practicing, it's like, I'll need 1, and you're like, oh, okay. I don't need that much. I see people with 99 or something, and they don't have any ancillaries. I'm like, oh, wow, it takes a lot. But no, they're just blinging it. Yeah, I mean, how, like, 99, what are you, in nullsec without any upwells you can dock at for a while? Yeah. So, it's all good. Yeah, the formulas, you can look them up. I've tested them. They're solid. The numbers hold up. Yeah, it's interesting how the numbers work. But yeah, I just boiled it down to the most practical uses out of it. I mean, that's really what you need. It's like, what can I use? Can I use this in my own game? Can I use this to help me? These formulas are nice, thank you very much, but help me figure out, the game. And basically, it's easy. Everything's pretty much 40 hit points. You divide that by the heat damage of that module you want to overheat, and that's exactly how many it will take before it burns out. And there's, other than reducing this with thermo skill and having a tactical destroyer or that strategic cruisers subsystem. That's it. That dial means jack shit for you practically. Literally, it's just completely ignorable because all you're watching for is how many hits can your module take while you're overheating, and when is it at the the last possible cycle you can dare get away with in that segment thing, watching for the segment that you need to cycle it off. And that's all you do. It's incredibly simple when you boil it down. And the gaming of, having empty modules and heat sinking mids, blah, 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 that's just bunk. Fit your ship. If you've got something that you think you're gonna use as a heat sink, like you've got 3 and you want to put something in the middle, just have an offline auto targeting or an offline festival launcher, and that's all you need. You could have it empty, for Christ's sake, and it would have the same effect. Having something there won't soak up any damage, because it's not. It gives you the impression, and this is where the misinformation comes from and the trolling comes from, is you think that a heatsink will reduce the damage done to other modules, but it doesn't at all. It just doesn't. The only way it's going to reduce it is if you don't have a module or it's offline. And then why are you ganking your fit, for 15% extra something when you could have something that's way better and instead of an empty slot, right? So yeah, it's possible to help reduce the chances of burning out, but it's not going to soak up, it's not going to protect your other modules, right? It's literally not. It's of no use in reducing damage. It's got the chance of slightly lowering your chances to damage, but it's not going to reduce the damage. So yeah, get that misconception out of your skull, because I think it's a lot of people have that, especially it's hard to get away from the trollage, because some people would just spread it through innocence, innocent ignorance, and but there's a lot of willful trolling in Eve. And plus, people just have an expectation, and they think something is this some way, and they just tell people to do it this way because it's a game, and good enough is good enough, and if it burns out, it burns out, and whoop-de-doo, and they do it probably the seat of their pants. They just guess and wing it, which is great. I mean, some people are really good at that, and that's how most people play. It's just a game. But if you really want to dial it down and go, wait a minute, is an online thing in between these things really going to help lower my chances to get heat damage? And is spacing going to help? Yes, a little bit. Not as much as you think, but and it's got a lot to do with RNG. But yeah, it's definitely possible to take advantage of overheating very comfortably, because you can do it comfortably because you know exactly how many hits you can take. And it's that takes all the worry out of it, because you're not going to accidentally get more segments in one cycle than you expected. You're going to get exactly that. If it gets damaged, it's going to be... So, yeah, in that, I think I've pretty much answered all the questions, and if you want more, just go look it up on Eve University. Yeah. I think I covered. I think this minute should have been. I think this video should have been 1 minute long, because it's all you need to do. Just go 40 divided by that is how many hits you can take. Bye.